오늘은 이제 새로운 그런 레이어 1 체인을 만들고 이제 막 런칭을 하게 된 모나드의 공동 창업자인 유니스님을 모시고 인터뷰를 진행하게 되었습니다. 저희 유니스님께서 본인의 소개와 그런 모나드의 간단한 소개를 해주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Eubin. And 안녕하세요. My name is Eunice, Eunice Giarda. I am the co-founder and GM of the Monad Foundation. At the Monad Foundation, our mission is to support the growth and adoption of the Monad blockchain. So Monad is a high-performance layer 1. It's built to scale a future for high-frequency finance. And what that means is that the tech stack that has been built for Monad is built for performance and scale. It's based off of the same tech as the Ethereum virtual machine spec for Ethereum. So that means entire EVM compatibility, so maximal smart contract portability. But Monad also supports true performance, 10,000 transactions per second, 400 millisecond block times with 800 millisecond finality. So that's less than 1 second finality, near zero fees. It's globally distributed and has a globally diverse set of validators. Monad is fast, it's seamless, it's decentralized, and most importantly, it's also open source, which means anyone can look at the code of the network and prove that the Monad transactions are provable and publicly verifiable.
그러면은 다음 두 번째 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 모나드는 이제 솔라나와 같은 기존 고성능 레이어 1 및 이제 메가이드와 EVM 호환 레이어 2와의 치열한 사용자 유치 경쟁에 놓여 있을 수밖에 없는 것 같은데요. 모나드가 근본적으로 어떠한 차별점들을 가지고 이 체인을 설계하고 비즈니스를 운영하는지, 그리고 어떠한 독특한 유즈 케이스를 가진 앱들이 모나드 생태계 위에서 빌딩되고 있는지 궁금합니다.
Yeah, these are excellent questions. So Monad at its core is the Ethereum virtual machine, but the execution client is a new novel implementation of that original EVM spec. It's written in C++. So my two co-founders of Monad, Keone Han and James Hunsaker, they both have backgrounds from jump trading. So that's high frequency trading, where they were developing very extremely low latency systems for trading on a scale of like nanoseconds with round trip times. So these systems were extremely fast, and they were building on C++. They were building with other machine code, and it was basically just very fundamentally optimized software at its most fundamental layer. So their background in HFT was then ported over with Monad. They took this expertise to set the foundation of what the Monad execution client is today. So it's super performant, and it's super performant at its fundamental layer. Very optimized, it's fast. Solana also offers performance, but with Monad, you're getting the benefits of EVM scaling on one single layer 1, without the trade-offs of having to scale with like an Ethereum layer 2, and that's how Ethereum has gone about the scaling roadmap so far. And so this is all just talking about the execution client. So let's skip over to the consensus client, because there's both execution as well as consensus when it comes to blockchain. So Monad's consensus client is called Monad BFT. It's also new and novel, and it is the premier Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus protocol. It offers fast recovery, it offers leader fault isolation, and what this unlocks is fast recovery from single leader failure in under 1 second, all while maintaining the same security properties and guarantees of the typical BFT protocols. So what that means is when there is one leader that is acting erroneously, there is a very quick way of the network to recover without a ton of latency and missed blocks. So that's superb from a performance perspective. Then there's also RaptorCast, which is a novel block propagation algorithm, and that significantly cuts down the communication overhead for blocks distributed throughout the world. So with communication, it introduces redundancy so that it can reliably scale at a global level for a vastly distributed network. Communication is typically communication is like the bane of network growth. Like that's where the bottlenecks typically happen, because worldwide round trip times for sending messages from New York to Seoul, it takes a long time and having to send it back. So it can often be a hindrance to performance because the hard problem is literally based on physics bottlenecks. So RaptorCast is pretty cool because it actually addresses the problem of network propagation with computer science fundamentals. So L1s, they scale differently. Instead of working with baseline fundamental changes, they forgo a lot of the security benefits and trustlessness of being distributed and being decentralized. L2s choose performance and speed at the expense of network scalability and resilience. So you don't get both of them. L2s are centralized, and so you are limited to a central point of failure. And that can be pretty devastating if your business relies on one given entity. So Monad is both performant, it offers speed and throughput, but it's also decentralized. It has 200 globally distributed validators in the active set. And, this is not just like us saying it, it's live, it's real, the code is there for everyone to see, it's open source. And you can see that there is true engineering work in the protocol that is unmatched in its entirety. So this combination of traits is important because it basically breaks down the concerns of the past with blockchains, meaning instead of needing to choose between decentralization and security and scalability, we all know this is the trilemma, you get all three. And this is a pretty big unlock for today's era of blockchain adoption. And because of that, we're now seeing interest from traditional financial institutions, from mainstream payments providers, from banking firms, and others who are looking for a very robust solution that is at its core reliable and resilient and trustless. And then your last question about use cases, I'm personally looking forward to seeing more high frequency finance come on chain. What I mean by high finance is that it's representing a future where you can manage and move and transact and interact with really big volumes of on-chain assets and do so in a very seamless way at the speed of the internet. So what that means for us nowadays is that it's instantaneous or nearly instantaneous. So high frequency finance basically means operating at the edge of on-chain efficiency with a globally accessible economy.
네, 그러면 다음 세 번째 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 현재 크립토 시장이 기관 투자자 중심의 국면으로 좀 전환됨에 따라 레이어 1의 프로젝트의 성패는 기관급 인프라와 실질적인 파트너십 확보 능력에 달려 있다고 생각이 드는데요. 이러한 관점에서 모나드가 기관 자금 유입을 위해 설계한 그런 차별화된 인프라 전략이 무엇이고, 또 현재 기관들과의 파트너십은 구체적으로 어떤 방향성을 가지고 추진되고 있는지 좀 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
We believe that over time, most financial assets are going to move on-chain. And when it comes down to it, on-chain infrastructure that offers better programmability, more transparency, and efficient settlement, over today's tech, that's what's going to make the difference. So we'll likely see this evolution playing out across two primary pillars. The first one is RWA, so real-world assets. We're seeing that institutions are looking to enable the tokenization of real-world assets and start making them usable beyond just the issuance step. The second thing is tokenized money. An example of this is stablecoins, and specifically how stablecoins can form the basis of settlement and liquidity layer for basically all of the other assets. Now, both of these pillars are important because the goal is to enable an on-chain economy and on-chain delivery as opposed to just a one-way street. So for payments, for example, both the asset leg and the cash leg settling on-chain, settling on Monad, that's important, and to be able to do so atomically and at scale. So beyond issuance, this means needing to solve also for distribution and utility. High throughput and low latency execution that's needed for RWAs needs to be widely supported so that we can get to a point where there's predictability from an operations perspective, and also cost efficiency. So what we're seeing is that institutions that are focused on settlement speed and reliability needs, they'll find that Monad's performance and scalability, along with the cost basis, is going to be a compelling fit. The EVM stack itself too, like the EVM solution that Monad brings, can support the high level volume payment flows, can support high frequency finance, and can support the needs of institutional players.
그러면 이제 다음 네 번째 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 최근 모나드가 한국 시장 총괄 채용에 나서면서 국내 시장 이제 공략에 박차를 가하는 모습이 되게 인상적으로 느껴졌는데요. 이 모나드가 진단하는 한국 시장만의 고유한 특수성은 이제 무엇일까요? 아울러서 한국 기업이 금융기관과의 협업을 통해 어떠한 유즈 케이스를 만들고자 하는지 좀 여쭤보고 싶습니다.
Korea has and also continues to be basically one of the most active and sophisticated crypto markets in the world. We've seen that retail adoption has been, pretty strong over the years. But what's exciting now is that there's more regulatory clarity and institutional readiness that we're seeing. So as these frameworks mature, we're expecting that more financial institutions in Korea and large conglomerates are now going to shift and advance from experimenting in blockchain to productionizing use cases on chain. So the combination therein of Korea's strong capital markets, strong financial institutions, a really engaged retail and consumer audience, and that clear regulatory environment, that's going to create a natural path for institutional adoption in Korea. So as far as use cases are concerned, we're seeing through conversations 3 areas that have strong momentum. First one is stablecoin-based payments for things like cross-border settlement and payments, treasury and management, and other use cases where speed, certainty, and fees and costs are important. The second one is RWA, so real-world assets for like tokenized securities and funds that want to bring some of those funds and assets on chain and reach potentially a new audience. And then the third one would be non-financial tokenization, things like loyalty programs and customer engagement that can unlock new modes of distribution, new modes of utility provisioning. And I think we've seen a couple of Korean conglomerates play around with that over the years too. So recent discussions are also around the KRW denominated stablecoins and tokenized securities that our team is having is signaling that shift into live deployments already. One example is Shinhan Securities recently partnered with Etherfuse to bring tokenized sovereign debt to Korea and Asia more generally on Monad. So that was pretty exciting. And as a launch blockchain, Monad is delivering the execution speed needed and the operational reliability needed for the institutional grade sovereign debt issuance, along with the fact that it's an EVM stack as well. So it's a proof of concept, more than proof of concept, but proof in reality that the benefits that a chain like Monad provide are ready and compelling for institutional grade use cases. And more generally at the Monad Foundation, we're hopeful to continue to work closely with Korean financial institutions, corporations, enterprises that are looking to explore on-chain adoption in a way that's also compliant and economically meaningful from the very beginning. And we're finally at a place in time where a lot of these things are falling into place.
그러면 5번째 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 현재 모나드는 그 모나드 9 업그레이드라는 대규모 네트워크 업그레이드를 앞두고 있는데요. 해당 업그레이드로 인해 개발자와 리테일 유저 각각의 입장에서 그 어떤 변화를 느낄 수 있을지와 이번 업그레이드가 모나드의 중장기적 로드맵상에서 갖고 있는 의미가 무엇인지 알려주실 수 있으면 좋겠습니다.
Good question. So we've seen a couple of minor upgrades already occur on the network. And generally, as the network matures, every new upgrade is just a signal for So every future update and upgrade is a signal for more efficiency improvements to Monad that will benefit developers, it'll benefit businesses that are building on Monad, and also users alike. So for Monad 9, as of today, there's proposed inclusions of 3 primary MIPs, which is a Monad improvement proposal, as opposed to an EIP. The first is MIP 3, and it covers linear memory. So the change there is a change to the cost of expanding the EVM memory from being charged on a quadratic equation to a linear one. So the TLDR there is that transaction memory is going to be cheaper. It's going to be easier and more reliable to predict the cost of as well. The next one is MIP4. That is for, it's reserve balance introspection. So that introduces a new precompile that allows for checks of what we call reserve balance violations. So Monad has introduced a concept of reserve balances for transactions. And this basically enables smart contracts to query the reserve balance in flight before a transaction finalizes to prevent any reversions that would be caused from a bad state in the reserve balance. Like if the transaction yields a reserve balance that is negative, like that would be bad and normally would revert. And in this case, it would prevent that transaction from happening in the first place. And then the third MIP is MIP5. It's for the Fusaka activation in Ethereum. So the Fusaka upgrade includes a handful of EIPs that are related to the ModX precompile, as well as the CLZ opcode, which is the count leading zeros opcode. So anyway, it's more of an Ethereum thing, and this is required so that we can continue to have Monad be backward compatible with Ethereum.
네, 그러면 저희 다음 질문으로 넘어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 많은 레이어 1 프로젝트들이 단기적인 성능 경쟁이나 이제 내러티브에는 성공했지만, 이제 장기적으로는 네트워크 효과를 만들지 못하고 사라지기도 했는데요. 유니스님이 보시기에 모나드가 5년, 10년 이상 살아남는 L1이 되기 위해 가장 중요하다고 생각하는 한두 가지 조건은 무엇일까요?
This is a really great question. And I have a guess as to what some of those characteristics might be. I know I could be wrong, but I think one important thing is a continued focus on improvement. So that is to never be complacent and to always look to improve the network, listen to users, listen to customers, and just like how technology evolves over time, blockchains need to evolve as well. We're still very early on in the days of blockchain tech. And if we were to stop now to say that it can't get better, I think that would be very short-sighted. I think another thing is just commitment overall to building the hard thing and persevering in the face of challenges or distractions that might come about, whether it's the market or whether it's temporary narratives that pop up, but being committed and having conviction in what you're building, I think is very important.
네, 그러면 다음 질문입니다. 고성능 블록체인은 이제 점점 새로운 레이어 1들에 의해 혹은 레이어 2에 의해 기본값이 되어가고 있는 것 같은데요. 모나드가 생각하는 이 성능 이후의 차별화 포인트, 즉 성능이 충분히 확보된 이후에도 개발자와 이 자본이 머무를 이유는 무엇이라고 생각하는지가 좀 궁금합니다.
Yeah, great question. I think if I were to put it simply, it would be that actual adoption is what makes the real difference. At some point, technology is not going to be a big differentiator, and I think we will see its speed and scale become more of a commodity. Like that, I firmly believe, and we've seen that time and time again, where technology just catches up, and so technology at some point may no longer be that moat. I mean, we can think of smartphones, for example. Smartphones today are pretty fungible, like whether you have an iPhone or a Samsung or any other branded smartphone. Like the quality between different brands and models are pretty much at parity. And there's even some lesser known models that might have better features, better camera, more megapixels, whatever it may be, than the bigger iPhones and the Samsungs of the world. And yet somehow most people have a Samsung or an iPhone, like those phones still have market share for some reason. And why is that? Part of it might just be that je ne sais quoi. There's something that sets it apart beyond just the fundamental tech itself, whether it's network effects that it creates, whether it's the ecosystem of apps that it has, right? Like both the Android Play Store and the Apple App Store, they have their own set of apps. And sure, some of them are cross-platform, the way that some apps are cross-chain like Uniswap, but some of them are distinct to just Apple and some are just distinct to the Android family. So I think that's what will set apart some of these chains in the longer term. Maybe it's the founders that set different ecosystems apart. Maybe it's the apps and the ecosystem and the way that different app teams are able to collaborate and compose upon each other to build a very rich experience for users. And quite frankly, I'm hopeful to see that happen on Monad, where we're no longer experiencing one app in silo with another, where there's now where there's a future of more composability, of like seamless experiences, of like on-chain identity. I think that'd be really cool.
그러면 이제 마지막으로 모나드를 주의 깊게 보고 있는 한국의 금융기관, 개발자, 그리고 크립토 리테일 투자자분들에게 전하고 싶은 메시지가 있다면 해주시면서 이 인터뷰를 마칠 수 있으면 좋겠습니다.
Firstly, I'd like to say that the Monad ecosystem and the Monad blockchain is just getting started. It launched mainnet just a couple of months ago in late November. And the team at Monad Foundation, myself, we're all looking forward to building with Korea, working closely with financial institutions, enterprise businesses, and young talent at Korea's top universities to engage in Monad in different ways that solve new and differentiated problems. In the next couple of months, you'll see Monad pop up here and there with Blitz. It's a developer hackathon, and it's returning to Seoul for the fourth time. So that'll be super exciting. And the Monad Foundation team is also going to be back in Seoul for Middle Asia in April. So I definitely look forward to an on-chain future with the Korean market, and I definitely look forward to meeting whether it's financial instos or enterprises or college students university students who are interested in what Monad has to offer or how to start building and migrating on-chain.
Thank you. Yeah, looking forward to meeting you on April. Yeah, it's great news that you guys will have a plan to organize another hackathon, Monad hackathon in Seoul. 그러면 이것으로 저희 코인재테크스쿨 오늘 모나드의 공동 창업자이신 유니스님과의 인터뷰를 모두 마치도록 하겠습니다. 답변해 주셔서 감사합니다.
감사합니다.